The other day, I was having a coffee with a dear friend. He's one of those people who seems to have everything figured out. Brilliant guy, still looking amazing at 45, successful career. Lots of people love him, and yet he just looked at me at some moment. He was telling me a story, and he just paused and said, "Man, I don't feel like myself anymore. I'm bored. I'm tired. I'm just kind of off." I smiled, not because it was funny, but because I was honored and surprised that he would be, sharing this thing with me. He's not the type of guy that shares this with a lot of people. And what I answered is like that. Well, it was perhaps a moment to stop. Just pause. There's no need to insist in doing things that are not making you happy. So why don't we just pause and ask the question? Is this the right direction? Is this my life? Am I living my truth? And we went on talking about this for a long while, by the way. This audio it comes after that talk because I was really amazed on how impressed and how curious he was about this concept. It was kind of like if this concept of pausing and of looking at if you're living from your inner truth and working from there was kind of like a new idea. Of course, obviously he surely has met with this idea, but definitely it wasn't something that he had in his mind. And I thought, wow, well, this is something I do have on my plate regularly, no? So of course, we all live in our boxes, and in my world, I'm surrounded by people who are searching for their truth, or at least they're open to the idea that it's worth looking for. So inside my bubble, living from your truth is something we say all the time. But talking to my friend, it reminded me that for many people, perhaps this is not common language. This is not a common concept, and it's not part of the daily conversation. That for me, of course, sounds crazy, but this doesn't mean it's everyone's reality, no. So I thought, well, perhaps it's time to share it again. I think I've been saying this for years, decades already, but perhaps we need to share it again. So I'm here with you to share this idea of the inner compass and what it means and what our life would look like if we actually followed it. I would like to begin with a funny, funny fact, the like the yoga teacher phenomenon. So have you noticed how many people these days are either becoming yoga teachers, thinking about it, or already halfway through the training? I mean, everybody knows someone who is doing something with yoga. And of course, it's not because yoga is the last job. AI will never replace that, by the way. We could have an audio, another audio about that. It is not because it's the best paying career in the West. I guarantee that. What the reason for this is because at some point in our lives, whether we like it or not, we're pulled towards our truth. Allow me to repeat this. It's because at some point in our lives, whether we like it or not, we are pulled toward our truth. And we might resist it for years, but eventually the pull becomes impossible to ignore. And we need to find ways to get there, to find it, to connect with that truth. And well, yoga is certainly a method that is accessible enough to start and deep enough to transform. So, with this in mind, it's like, well, what's happening with this truth element? No, what's going on with this? No, and well, we are wired to live in alignment with our truth. When we drift away from it, something inside just hurts. At first it's kind of like a whisper you can ignore, you can turn up the noise, you can distract yourself, you know what I'm talking about, overworking, over drinking, overeating, Netflix marathons and all of this. But if you keep doing that, one day the whisper turns into a scream. And I know that many of you know what I'm talking about. And by then, the changes you need to make will feel a lot bigger and a lot harder, and sorry to share, many times a lot more painful. So, definitely, it seems a better option to listen to that whisper, to listen earlier to that call from our soul, that call from our inner truth, our inner compass. This inner compass concept I'm mentioning, which by the way is just a different way of saying what ancient teachers have been saying since ever. The truth will set you free was one of the most famous phrases of one of the most important prophets, is exactly that. So this inner compass is a Martha Beck's idea about the calling of our soul, which is, it's basically how it feels like. It's like it's a call. It's our soul calling steadily, quietly, precisely, trying to indicate, well, like, hey man, that's not the route. Turn right, turn left, guiding you in life. And if we only heard it, my friend, it doesn't shout. Your soul, your inner compass doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It just points gently toward the life that it's truly yours. Now, the tragedy is not that we miss the compass. This is something that happens to all of us, regardless. Well, of course, I don't know if the Dalai Lama has this, but happens to all of us, regardless the level of consciousness, or in any case, happens to the majority of us. But it doesn't disappear because it never does. The tragedy is forgetting it's there, and we lose the skill to read it. So when we lose it, so how do we know that we lost it? Well, of course, there are symptoms, sorry, about this. And usually it comes like this restless feeling that never goes away, even when life looks great, from the outside, you have this kind of, for me, it kind of feels like a kind of when, you don't digest something, that it's just kind of like sitting in your stomach. It's that feeling that something is simply off, something is just not in place. Also, decision making feels like a like a super mega burden, because of course, part of the inner compass, well, that's why I like the metaphor. It's about, the cardinal points. We're trying to go north. So, if you don't know where you're going, how you're going to arrive there. So any decision really feels challenging, because on one side you can decide to keep on living what you're living, but on the other side you would like to do something else. Other thing is that your public version, I like this very much, your public version is moving in one direction, while your private and inner version, the true you, is kind of seeking for something else. So this splitness, this division is killing us. Of course, as we don't know what to do, we're constantly overthinking, which, of course, like yoga always said, it difficults clarity. And lastly, it's like I said, numbing. We are overworking, overdrinking, scrolling, Netflix, marathons, blah, blah, blah. And of course, we are avoiding our lives, because when we're numbing, we're avoiding our lives. I like very much this idea that why don't we design a life that we don't want to numb? So this lack of connection with our inner truth is not just uncomfortable. It erodes our self trust, because if you kind of like your soul is pulling you in one direction, and over and over and over you pull in the other, well, it comes a point where you just don't trust yourself, because you don't know which is your guide. Your social self, is it what the people expect from you, or it's your inner calling? So basically now every decision seems like you're like walking on roller skates on a cliff. Well, living without your inner compass is just not only confusing, it's quietly dangerous. Because the danger isn't making wrong choices. Everybody makes wrong choices. It's living out of alignment with your truth, that for so long that you forget if it's even possible to live in other way. That's when the spark goes, and you stop asking yourself what you really want, because you stop believing it matters. Now, the question is not that if the inner truth or if the inner compass exists or not. Everyone has an inner compass. The real question is, are you following it? Because, my friend, until you do, no matter how you live, it will never ever feel like home. So, how can we find it again? I've been searching for my own truth for too long to sell you the idea that there is a 7 step for this or a challenge for that. The path to our truth is exactly as our truth, unique. What I do know is that it begins by recognizing that regardless of the effort we have placed to have the life we have, or how satisfied we should be, quotes on quotes with our life, it melts down to closing our eyes and asking ourselves, is this me? Is this my life? Do I love my life? Yes, as romantic as that. Do I love my life? Do I love my days, the people I spend them with, and what I do with them? And the answer is not going to come with a fax. The answer is not going to come with an email. The answer is going to come with embodiment. The answer is going to come through your body. Ask yourself these questions. Perhaps it takes one session, two sessions, seven sessions. Alone. Perhaps it could even be just sitting in the toilet in the bathroom. Turn the lights off, close your eyes, ask yourself the questions, and think about these and think, allow it and feel. Feel, and the path to your inner truth begins there, because consciousness begins with recognition. Once we recognize something's missing, then we are able to begin the search to find it, and we will find it. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoy this format. It's me, Pedro, from Imagine Academy. I send you a super hug. Thanks. Bye bye.